This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Ben, 32, and I'm a freelance writer looking for peace and quiet to finish my novel. I chose a cabin deep in the Appalachians because I wanted to escape the city after my recent breakup. The first night, everything felt perfect. I had my laptop ready, and the fire crackled softly in the stove. But as the sun dipped below the trees, something started to change. I was focused on writing when I first heard it. A faint scratching noise came from outside, scraping against the wooden walls. I thought it was just the wind, or maybe a raccoon. It was a little unsettling, but I shook it off and kept typing. I've never stopped thinking about it, if only I'd paid closer attention then. As the days passed, the scratching got louder. It turned to thumping, like something heavy was hitting the side of the cabin. I tried to convince myself it was an animal, probably a bear, but still, I felt a chill creep down my spine. I began to hear hushed whispers, something soft and unintelligible that just brushed by my ears in the stillness of the night. At times, it felt like someone was shrieking just beyond the trees. My heart raced each time, but I kept clinging to logic. Around midnight one night, I realized the noises had changed again. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, started circling the cabin. I felt my stomach drop. I kept the light off, fearing it would draw whatever was out there closer. I peered through the small window, but the darkness outside swallowed everything. I was paralyzed, waiting for something to happen. Then I saw it. Just for a moment, a shadow darted by. I thought maybe it was my imagination, but the chatter of voices grew louder. It was chilling. I could feel my breath quicken as I wondered what was out there. My fingers trembled on the keyboard. Writing became impossible. I struggled to convince myself that nothing was wrong. Each night felt heavier. I tried to dismiss it, but my mind wouldn't let go. I peered out again and saw more shadows flitting between the pines, almost like they were watching me. My skin prickled, and I started to doubt my isolation. Was I truly alone? I could almost hear a name being whispered. My name. I tried to write it off as fatigue, but it was getting harder to ignore. The sounds were growing bolder and shadows were moving closer. I felt claustrophobic in my cabin. Each sound became louder and the whispers sounded more like a chant. I was about to try to rationalize it again when I heard a knock. The sound echoed through the cabin. It was coming from inside. I spun around, heart racing, cold gripped my chest. I asked myself, what was happening? But deep inside, I knew I no longer had the answer. Then I saw a figure in the doorway, just standing there, staring at me. I could barely breathe. What do you want? I managed to ask, but there was no answer. I felt confused. My mind raced, trying to piece it together. Is this a joke? I asked again. The figure remained silent. I leaned toward the door. Whatever it was stepped into the faint light, revealing a hollow face and sunken eyes. I gasped. What are you? It grinned, but it didn't feel right. Cold sweat trickled down my back. Its lips moved, but I couldn't hear a sound. Then I heard the whispers all around me louder than ever. And just like that, it struck me. It wasn't just a figure. No, it was an echo of everything that haunted these woods. My name woven into their chant, along with each night's sound. I stepped back, but it took a step toward me. The whispers grew into a cacophony, drowning me in sheer terror. I stumbled away, but the figure only followed, smiling wider. I felt trapped in my own nightmare. Everything I thought I understood slipped away. The darkness swallowed me whole as the shadows closed in. I bolted backward, my heart pounding in my ears. The figure's empty eyes seemed to drink in my fear. Panic surged through me. I needed to escape. I turned and sprinted toward the back of the cabin, desperate to get away from that horrible smile. My hands fumbled at the door and I swung it open, just as the figure let out a low, rumbling chuckle that echoed in the stillness. Outside, shadows shifted among the trees, their shapes indistinct but always watching. My breath came in ragged gasps as I navigated the path leading away from the cabin. I wanted to run until I reached safety, but I knew there was no true safety out here. The woods felt alive, the whispers following me, each step heavier than the last. I didn't know how far I ran. Any direction felt equally disorienting, every tree blending into the next, but the sounds only grew louder behind me. They were relentless. There were voices now, chanting in that eerie rhythm. My name echoed back at me, and dread crawled under my skin. I stumbled, and the ground suddenly gave way, throwing me down a slope into thick underbrush. I landed hard, the world spinning. My wrist throbbed, but there was no time to assess the damage. I had to get away. I forced myself up, pushing through the thorns and branches. Panic numbed the pain as I clawed my way through the darkness, freaking out over the idea of what could be right behind me. Then I found a clearing. The moonlight broke through the trees, illuminating a small pond. I stopped to catch my breath, eyes darting around, scanning every shadow. An overwhelming sense of dread hung in the air, and the water was still, reflecting a distorted version of the night. That's when I felt it. The whispers were closer now. Suddenly I noticed something at the edge of the water. A pale hand emerged from the shadows, knotted and twisted, reaching out toward me. My heart stopped. I squinted at the figure beyond the trees. Was it another? Or was it a trick of the dim light? "Help me," came a soft croak from its lips. The voice was hauntingly familiar. A wave of nausea washed over me. It was my own voice. "Is this me?" I gasped, feeling physically ill. I shook my head, stepping back, slowly unsure of what to do. The hand gripped the edge of the pond, pulling itself closer, a reflection of hopelessness, a reminder of what I had tried to escape. I turned to flee again, but the shadows danced all around me. I could hear laughter, echoing in the trees, mocking my feet that stumbled away. "You can't run forever, Ben." The whispers morphed into coherent words, weaving around me like a noose. Driving forward, I tried to push the fear out of my mind. I searched for the path back, gripping my wrist where pain pulsed. I needed to find the cabin, the comfort of my old life. But anxiety clawed at me. The shadows weren't just outside anymore. They were in my head. Then I saw it. A flash of light, soft and warm, coming from where the cabin should be. Relief surged through me. But just as quickly, doubt crashed in. Was it real, or was it another cruel game? I hesitated only a moment before running toward it, praying it wouldn't disappear. Each step felt heavy, weighted by the dread of what lay behind. Just as I reached the edge of the clearing, the laughter ceased. Everything dropped into an unsettling silence, leaving only the sound of my breath. That's when I heard it. A voice, low and slithering, whispered my name. "Come back, Ben." The darkness shifted again, and I felt the cold hand of fear grip my throat as I faced the truth. There was nowhere left to hide. The flickering light ahead grew brighter, and a strange warmth washed over me. I felt drawn to it, as if the glow were reaching out, promising safety. But the deeper I stepped into the clearing, the more the shadows writhed, like they were alive and hungry. My instincts screamed for me to turn back. Maybe it was better to summon courage and confront whatever lived in the dark. Racing toward the cabin, I stumbled over roots and rocks. Each misstep felt like a mocking reminder of how easily I could fall into the grips of those shadows. I could hear my heart pounding, my breath echoing loudly in the quiet. Just as I came to the edge of the porch, I hesitated. No gentle knock awaited my arrival. The door swung open by itself. It creaked eerily, and I stepped inside. The light flickered in the cabin, illuminating familiar furniture cloaked in a fine layer of dust. My chest tightened. Everything felt wrong, like a dream twisted into a nightmare. There was an uninvited chill in the air that made my skin prickle. I turned and locked the door, desperate to shut out the whispers and laughter that still echoed in the night. That familiar sadness from the pond clawed at my heart, and I pressed my back against the door, feeling the cool wood against my unsteady breath. From the corner of my eye, something shifted near the window, a shadow too long for the space. I peered through the grime on the glass. Outside, the trees swayed, their branches like bony fingers reaching out, beckoning me back to the darkness. A whisper slithered through the cracks. "You can't stay here, Ben." Every nerve in my body lit up, urging me to explore. I stepped away from the door, drawn by an impulse I couldn't explain. The old lantern flickered on the table, casting restless shadows that danced across the walls. I had to know what was happening. I moved to the dresser. Buried beneath a pile of old clothes was an envelope, crumpled and stained. I hesitated, my hand hovering above it. I could feel a weight pushing down at my conscience. Something told me whatever was inside would only complicate my fragile hold on reality. Finally, I snatched it up and opened it, my heart racing. Inside was a faded photo, an image of a group of people standing at the pond. They looked happy, but their faces were all too familiar. I stared into the eyes of each person, heart pounding. They were all me, different versions, different times. That's when I noticed the figure in the back, obscured in shadows. There was something unsettling about it, as if it were watching me. Fear coiled in my stomach. All at once the laughter returned, louder and closer, echoing with my name. "Ben, come meet us." I stumbled back, the envelope slipping from my hands and landing on the floor. The earth beneath me vibrated, and the walls seemed to shift as if closing in. My pulse quickened, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever this was, it was only the beginning. Then everything around me went dark. The darkness felt suffocating. I blinked, resetting my eyes, but the cabin remained a pitch-black void. I fumbled to grasp the edges of the table, my fingers brushing against the cool metal of the lantern. With an unsteady hand, I flicked the switch. The dull glow illuminated the room just enough to reveal the chaos. What had I seen? The lingering echoes of laughter still danced in my ears, and I felt an irresistible pull to the window. I hesitated, my body caught in a battle between fear and curiosity. Would I find the shadow again? I couldn't shake the vision of that figure. It gnawed at me, demanding answers, demanding. Slowly, I shuffled toward the window, casting nervous glances over my shoulder as if the shadows themselves were about to leap at me. I unlatched the window and pushed it open. The sudden rush of chilled air felt like a jolt to my senses. I leaned out, trying to listen, hoping to catch a familiar sound amid the oppressive silence. The forest outside was alive with night sounds, the rustling leaves, a distant hoot of a barn owl. But in the back of my mind, I still heard that laughter, now twisted into something sinister. It felt alarmingly close. Was it coming from the trees? I peered deeper into the darkness, struggling to discern any movement. That's when I saw it. A flicker of light blinked among the trees, far off but distinct. A small, luminous figure danced between the trunks. It moved with a rhythm that was both enchanting and unsettling. I felt a compulsion to follow it. My heart throttled against my chest as if urging me to act. It was a mistake, but I stepped back inside, grabbed a flashlight from my bag, and stepped out onto the porch. A bead of sweat dripped down my brow, despite the cold night air. As I ventured into the woods, my feet crunched the fallen leaves, the sound echoing in the stillness. The light flickered again, drawing me closer like a moth to a flame. I didn't even register how far I had gone until all semblance of cabin or safety had disappeared. With each step, the laughter returned stronger, more mocking, like a taunt that sent prickles down my spine. I raised the flashlight, its beam revealing the ghostly shapes of tree branches against the starless sky. Nothing looked familiar anymore. "Ben!" The voice cackled again, a twisted mimicry of my own name. Panic surged through me as I spun around, shining the light in every direction. There was no one, but I could feel eyes watching me from every shadow. I stumbled back, half turning to flee. But then I stopped. Something caught my eye. A movement to my right. I swept the flashlight beam across the underbrush and froze. The shadows shifted, and in that moment I saw the figure again, standing just beyond the reach of the light. It was clearer now, its face obscured, but a chilling, familiar outline tinged with the glow of the moon. I could feel my breath catch in my throat. I had to know. Who was it? The very thought filled me with dread. But there was no escaping it now. As the laughter swelled, the figure stepped closer, the shadows stretching out behind it like a dark cloak. Then, out of nowhere, the flashlight flickered and went out. I was swallowed by the dark. My heart raced in the pitch black. I could feel the weight of silence pressing down on me. I moved my hand to the flashlight, fumbling for it. But all I grasped was air. Panic surged through me. Where was it? I had to get it back on. I took a deep breath, forcing my brain to focus. I felt around, my fingers brushing against the cool, damp ground. I was still near the edge of the porch, but every shadow felt alive, every rustle a threat. But I couldn't stay still. I couldn't let fear freeze me. Carefully, I shifted my weight and retraced my steps toward the cabin. As I walked, I fought to keep my breathing steady. Suddenly, a crack split the silence, sharp and startling. The noise came from my left, closer to where I had seen the figure. "Ben," the voice whispered again, softer but undeniably my name. I froze, chills creeping up my spine. Was someone really out there? Had I wandered into a trap? I turned slowly, every muscle tensed. The darkness swirled around me like a living thing. Then I heard it, the faint sound of rustling like someone moving through the underbrush. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I strained to listen. The laughter faded into a chilling giggle, then fell silent again. I concentrated, trying to catch any hint of movement, any sign of the figure I'd glimpsed, but nothing came. It was as if the woods held their breath, waiting, watching. With a surge of determination, I took a step forward, then another. I couldn't turn back. I had to confront whatever was hiding in the shadows. I felt along the ground as if the very earth could guide me. And then, just when I thought I might turn back for the safety of the cabin, I stumbled over something. Kneeling down, my fingers brushed against something cold and smooth. I picked it up. It was a small, round button. The metallic surface glinted faintly in the moonlight. I remembered it. It was part of my jacket from childhood, one I had lost years ago. But how was it here? I felt a twisting knot in my stomach. Then I heard a gasp nearby, a sharp intake of breath. I froze again. It was closer this time, almost right behind me. I turned slowly, the grip on the button tightening until it dug into my palm. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. No answer. I backed up against a tree, the rough bark scratching against my skin, my eyes darting around for any sign of the figure. That's when I saw it again. A flicker of movement just at the edge of my vision, illuminated by the soft glow of moonlight cutting through the branches. But this time, it didn't look like just a shadow. It was standing still, unnaturally still, just watching. "Ben," it whispered again, this time dripping with familiarity. I turned and ran. I had to get away. I bolted into the deep woods, desperate for the safety of the cabin, but I could hear footsteps following me, quick and light. I could feel my heart in my throat as I dashed through the thicket. If only I could reach the cabin. But then I stumbled, falling hard against the forest floor, and that's when I heard it. A breath, sharp and cold, right beside my ear. I froze again, the world around me fading into a deafening silence. I was not alone. I held my breath, unable to move. The cold air stung my skin, pure fear wrapping around me like a vice. Was this it? Was something coming for me? The breath beside my ear was so real, so chilling, it felt as if it were pulling the warmth from my body. I forced myself to turn, to face whatever was there. My heart thundered a relentless beat, drowning out all other sounds. But as I looked, I saw nothing. The darkness swallowed everything, and the woods seemed to sigh, mocking my terror. Then a soft giggle echoed again, skittering through the trees. It was just behind me, teasing, like a child playing a game. "Ben," the voice whispered one last time, before the stillness returned. I scrambled to my feet, determined to escape. If I could just reach the cabin, I could lock the door, and whatever was out here wouldn't follow me inside. I sprinted in the direction I thought the cabin stood, branches whipping against my arms, roots wrapping around my ankles, trying to trip me and pull me back. Just when I thought I was gaining ground, the footsteps echoed once more, now racing alongside me. I glanced over my shoulder but saw only shadows flitting between the trees. I was losing my mind. I couldn't let fear take over. I had to focus. Finally, a light glimmered through the thick gloom. I had found it, the cabin. I bolted toward the door, slamming it open and stumbling inside. I slammed the door shut behind me, my chest heaving with every breath. But before I could catch my breath, I heard it, the gentle sound of the cabin's old floorboards creaking. I froze again. I wasn't alone. I whirled around, looking for any sign of what was in here with me. I switched on the only light, its flickering yellow glow illuminating the space just enough to see. There in the corner, something shifted. My heart raced as I moved closer, each step hesitant. It was a small, ragged doll, sitting upright on the dusty floor. Its button eyes seemed to stare right through me. I recognized it instantly. The one I used to play with as a child, long lost in my parents' attic. But how did it end up here? And who had brought it? As I knelt down to pick it up, a chill ran through the air, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Something was wrong. Then I felt it, a slight touch against my shoulder, light but unmistakable. I jumped back, dropping the doll. It hit the floor with a soft thud, and I quickly turned around. The room was empty. But the door I had shut was ajar, swinging slightly as if something had come inside. My pulse quickened as I approached it, fear clawing at my chest. I had to know what was out there, who was watching. I paused at the threshold, heart pounding in my ears. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of laughter, echoing through the woods surrounding the cabin. It wasn't just a noise, it was an invitation. With a mix of dread and curiosity, I stepped outside, my breath catching in my throat. The faint glow of the moon felt like a spotlight on me as I called out into the darkness. "Who's there?" The laughter stopped, and silence crept back in, heavier than before. But I could feel it, a presence waiting, watching, just beyond the trees. And somehow I knew it wouldn't be long before I found out what it wanted. I stepped into the night, my heart thudding like a drum in my chest. The trees loomed above me, dark sentinels watching. I strained my ears, searching for any hint of movement. Just the wind, I told myself, just the wind. But then a rustling sound disrupted the stillness, almost too close. I turned, peering into the shadows, desperate to see what might be lurking there. My breath quickened. "Show yourself," I called, my voice trembling. Silence hung thick in the air again, and the cold bite of fear wrapped around me tighter. Was I just chasing shadows? I wanted nothing more than to run back inside, to lock the door and pretend this night hadn't happened. But something pulled me forward, an invisible thread weaving through the darkness, urging me to investigate. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement off to my left. My heart raced as I squinted, trying to make out what it was. A small figure darted between the trees. It was child-sized, but there was something wrong with the way it moved, too quick, too fluid, like it didn't quite belong to this world. I took a step forward, unable to help myself. "Hello?" I tried again, my voice barely more than a whisper. The figure stopped, turning its head to look at me, but I couldn't see a face, just darkness. It was the doll, the same one I had dropped, but now somehow alive. A memory flared in my mind, archaic and unsettling. As if in response to my fear, the figure began to move toward me. Worry surged through my veins. I realized I was no longer standing on solid ground, but on the edge of a precipice, ready to fall into an abyss of horror. Suddenly the laughter returned, clear and ringing, surrounding me from all directions. Panic seized me. I turned to run, but the sound swirled around me, trapping me in this nightmarish dance. That's when I stumbled, my feet tangling in roots, and I fell to the ground. The laughter faded, replaced by heavy silence that pressed against my ears. I lay there, breathless and terrified. I had lost sight of the figure. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline fueling my urgency. I had to get back inside. I whipped around, looking for the cabin and finally catching sight of its silhouette against the moonlight. I sprinted for it, heart racing. I kicked the door open and slammed it shut behind me, bolting the lock. As I leaned against it, gasping, I caught my breath. The cabin felt safe again, but a lingering dread settled in my stomach. Was it done with me, or just biding its time? I glanced toward the window, expecting to see nothing but the calming darkness. Instead, the old doll was back, sitting right on the table as if it had never left. Its button eyes almost seemed to glimmer in the dim light. But this time, it wasn't alone. Another small figure hovered near the back wall, shrouded in the shadows. They were watching me, and I realized whatever had invited me outside was now inside. Everything I thought I knew twisted, and an unsettling thought settled in my mind. I didn't belong here anymore. Then, the wall creaked as if something was pushing against it. My breath caught. I took a step back, heart racing once more. And that's when I heard the soft, familiar giggle. I wasn't prepared for what would happen next. I turned toward the wall, straining to listen. The giggle echoed again, a soft, childlike sound that seeped into my bones. Unease washed over me. I felt like a moth drawn to a flame, even though my instinct screamed to hide. "Who's there?" I shouted, hoping to sound braver than I felt. The answer was silence, heavy, almost mocking. My pulse quickened, and I glanced between the doll and the shadowed figure. They were somehow in cahoots, conspiring against me in the dim light of the cabin. Suddenly the doll lifted slightly, its head tilting as if it were considering me. The darkness pooled around it, coiling and unfurling in a rhythm that seemed almost alive. I couldn't shake the thought that I was being watched, not just by the figures in the room, but by something beyond, lurking outside the safety of the walls. I needed to find something to defend myself, anything that could push back against the dread that loomed in the corners of the cabin. I spotted the old fireplace poker propped against the wall. It was a long iron rod, heavy and solid in my hand as I grabbed it. As I stood there, the shadows flickered, shifting, warping in the minimal light. The figure in the shadows made a sudden movement, and my heart dropped. Composed of darkness, it darted to the doll's side, and they both turned to face me, their gazes piercing. I felt small and exposed, like a deer caught in headlights. The room felt colder. Every breath felt like labor. A whisper danced through the air, a near-silent hissing, growing louder until it swirled around me. "Join us," it seemed to say, a chilling invitation that made my skin crawl. "Get away!" I yelled, gripping the poker tightly. But it was more for show than courage. I had no idea how to fight something that felt so fundamentally wrong. I was out of my depth, trapped in a game I didn't understand. Before I could react, the shadow shifted again, and the doll's eerie giggle erupted once more, louder this time, filling the room with a manic joy. I felt their presence closing in, the darkness pressing against me like an invisible force. With a sudden surge of instinct, I lunged for the door. I needed to escape, to break this claustrophobic nightmare. I yanked it open, but the air outside tasted different, heavier, charged with dread. Night had deepened, and the trees loomed larger, like silent observers holding their secrets unconcerned. I didn't stop to think. I ran into the woods, but a chilling feeling tugged at me. I wasn't alone. The laughter danced behind me, ringing like a twisted lullaby, reminding me that I was still within their reach. Then I heard something else, a whisper that curled around my name like smoke. I faltered. Who was calling me? The voice was sweet and filled with a promise that made me want to turn back. I took a breath to steady myself, faced with a decision loaded with dread. Run deeper into the forest, or succumb to the insidious pull of whatever lurked behind me. As I hesitated, a sudden realization struck. The laughter had changed. It was no longer just a sound. It felt like a beckoning call, urging me closer toward the truth I was trying so hard to escape. The decision was looming, and I knew the next move would tip the balance. I was teetering on the edge. I hesitated, heart pounding, as the laughter twisted around me like a vine strangling its prey. In that moment, the decision felt almost monumental. The sweet whisper tugged at my resolve. It was softer now, inviting, weaving through the rustling leaves and the shadows. Before I could make sense of it all, a sharp crack echoed through the woods, followed by the sound of rustling branches. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the laughter anymore. Something was moving through the darkness. Something alive and intent on finding me. I turned to run, forcing myself deeper into the forest, aware of how vulnerable I felt. The poker felt like a flimsy reassurance in my grip, more a comfort than a weapon. I weaved between trees, desperate to distance myself from whatever was pursuing me. Then, just as I thought I had gained some ground, I stumbled. A root snagged my foot, sending me crashing to the forest floor. Pain shot through my knee, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I scrambled to my feet, but the laughter had grown fainter, replaced by a new sound. Footsteps echoing softly behind me. Crouching behind a nearby tree, I pressed my back against the rough bark, straining to listen. I was breathing hard, fighting the panic that wanted to rise. My thoughts swirled, tangled like the underbrush around me. What was chasing me? I had to know. Peering around the tree, I saw movement in the dim light. A figure emerged from the darkness. My breath hitched in my throat. It was the shadow I had seen in the cabin, now forming into a solid shape. There was something childlike about it, small and unsettling. The childish giggle came again, and I could see it was holding something. In the half-light, I realized it was the doll. It was now poised in its little arms, gaze fixed on me. A chill ran through me, and I thought about the whispering voice, about the promise that had lured me back. Was it calling to the doll? Were they connected somehow? I made a choice then, fueled by desperation. I had to confront this strange apparition. It felt like the only way to break the sinister spell that held me. I stepped out from behind the tree, raising the poker defensively. "Why are you chasing me?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. The figure paused, tilting its head, the doll turning to the side as if in deep contemplation. "Join us," it called back, the voice now echoing through the trees like a chant. Out of instinct, I gripped the poker tighter, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Never," I yelled, my voice shaky. The forest felt silent for a breath, the air thick with tension. Then from the darkness beyond the figure, I heard a low growl, a sound that seemed to belong to something far more sinister than a doll or a child. My heart raced as another figure stepped into view, larger and more shadowed than the first. A choice had to be made. Stand and fight, or turn tail and run again. Just as I felt the decision weighing on me, something cold brushed against my ankle, a branch, or something worse. I glanced down just as the world around me dipped into darkness. Then everything went dark. As I struggled in the suffocating darkness, my heart pounded furiously against my ribcage. Everything blurred together, the whispers, the laughter, the pinpricks of cold that felt too close. I was unsure whether I was standing or falling, lost in a void deeper than sheer night. But then the darkness shifted. Though I could see nothing, I could feel something awakening around me, a memory or a longing rising through the dimness. I squinted into the void and saw a flicker of light, distant and wavering. Almost instinctively, I moved toward it. The gradual warmth of that light danced around me, pushing back the consuming blackness. I staggered forward, desperate to reach that glow, willing it to guide me home. With each step, the chaos of my muddled thoughts quieted, twisted emotions unfurling. As I neared the light, I broke through another layer of shadows and emerged into a clearing. Relief washed over me, the vibrant silver of moonlight illuminating everything around. I heard the soft lapping of water at the edge of a pond, glistening like polished glass. But the glow was not only the moon, it radiated from the small figure standing at the water's edge. It was them, the figures I'd been chasing, the children, the shadows woven into the fabric of laughter. They stood together, their dark outlines stark against the bright water, gazing with hollow eyes. Panic surged through me. How had I ended up here? Just beyond the water, the familiar echoes of my name floated through the air, weaving my mind into knots. Ben, they sang softly, that alluring, chilling chorus pulling at my resolve. Join us. In that heartbeat, the warmth of the light flickered in my chest, a reminder of what I had left behind. I had come here for peace and solitude, not to be interwoven with the lost, the silent ghosts that echoed through these woods. My breath quickened again, and a primal urge to run ripped through my body. I turned to flee, but as I backtracked, I stumbled against something solid, something behind me. I swung around, eyes wide with dread. The shape looming over me was larger than any of the shadows, its presence felt before it could be seen. It loomed there, its features indistinguishable, yet somehow I knew it was observing me. The laughter echoed louder, now warping into shrieks. The children shifted closer to the water, their ghastly smiles ever widening under the receding moonlight. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been woven tightly into their story, one I had never asked to join. A moment of clarity flooded my mind. What if this was the end? Not just of a night, but of the tether that connected me to reality. I had chased shadows long enough. I was tired, exhausted with fighting, with questioning. With every ounce of strength I had left, I bolted for the tree line, racing toward where I believed my cabin lay. The laughter began to dissolve behind me, mingling with cries of protest. The echoes faded until all that accompanied me was the soft rustle of leaves plunging me further into the unknown. In my racing thoughts, I grasped at the fleeting memories of my life before this terror, a life I wasn't ready to abandon. But still, what was this? Was this madness driven by grief, or were the woods themselves alive in a way I couldn't fully comprehend? Suddenly I tripped, my foot catching on an unseen root. I flew forward, landing hard in the underbrush, breathless and trembling. Nerves crackled beneath my skin. I pushed myself up, gathering the remnants of my courage. I had to break free. With determination igniting my bones, I stumbled out of the tree line and burst into what should be the clearing near my cabin. Yet there was nothing but darkness before me. I had run in circles, the realization hitting me with a knot of despair. My thoughts raced. Had I been ensnared? Ben! The children cried from the shadows, their shrieks echoing beyond the trees. Driven back to the edge of despair, I weighed my options. Confront this revelation, whatever it was, or keep running blindfolded back into the dark. The truth lay unfurling ahead, but this time I could feel it leaning closer like a thick fog. "I'm not afraid," I shouted, but uncertainty coursed through me, and then silence fell. In the stillness I felt drawn again, lingering in that in-between space where questions hung heavy, unshaped by answers. As shadows blinked and widened around me, I knew my only choice was to stand my ground, no matter what awaited. I could still hear the whispers, their threads woven forever through the night. And while the echoes began to fade, one thing remained eerily clear. I was never truly alone. I turned, ready to face whatever this was, knowing I might not understand that some answers may be forever shrouded. And that uncertainty? It felt like freedom at last.